A single breath, a steady aim. The white-haired young man pulled the trigger without the slightest tremor in his hand. The shot rang out clean and precise, striking its target dead center. The large man staggered, eyes wide with disbelief as the impact tore through him. For a split second, the world seemed to freeze, then chaos erupted. Bodyguards shouted in panic, raising their weapons and firing wildly at the lone intruder. Bullets ripped through the air and into the young man's body. Each impact drained his strength, yet not a flicker of regret crossed his face. As he collapsed onto the cold floor, he thought about the one truth that made the world equal for everyone. No matter how powerful or wealthy, each person is given only one life. The villain, who had once stood untouchable behind layers of money and influence, now lay motionless. All his fortune had failed to protect him. Blood blurred the young man's vision, but deep inside, a quiet satisfaction stirred. He had avenged his parents. Even so, sorrow weighed heavily on him. The road to revenge had cost him everything. Reaching out weakly into empty space, he refused to accept that this was the end. He would not vanish into nothingness like this. Darkness slowly swallowed his sight, and the sounds around him faded until there was only silence. His consciousness sank into an endless abyss. Yet his spirit resisted. It cried out desperately for another chance, one more opportunity to rewrite the past. And then, just as the darkness seemed absolute, a faint sliver of light pierced through it. The light grew stronger, breaking apart the void, and he opened his eyes with fierce determination burning within them. Warm sunlight streamed across his face. He found himself lying in a modest bed, the morning rays illuminating a simple, familiar room. He sat up abruptly, clutching his chest in disbelief. He clearly remembered the bullets tearing through him, so how was he still alive? His breathing quickened as he examined his surroundings. Every detail felt painfully nostalgic. This was the room he had lived in years ago, back when life had not yet fallen apart. On the old television across the room, a commercial was playing for a newly launched virtual reality game called Conviction. The cheerful advertisement clashed with the storm of realization forming in his mind. Slowly, shock turned into certainty. He had returned to the past. Fate had granted him a second chance. Standing up, Nyan felt the strength of youth flowing through him again. His body was whole, unscarred by bullets or regret. He gazed at the photographs lining the wall, fully aware of who he was and what awaited him. Picking up a frame, he looked at the image of his parents. They had once worked with metals on the frontier, building their fortune through strategic materials. His father had founded a company that quickly grew into a powerful enterprise, bringing wealth and comfort to their family. But success had drawn the wrong kind of attention. Envy and greed crept in from those they trusted most. At 18, Nyan had watched everything crumble. Friends and relatives betrayed them, manipulated the company, and pushed it into bankruptcy. Their empire collapsed overnight. Looking into the mirror now, he saw the face of his younger self and felt a sharp sting of regret. In his previous life, he had been careless and lazy, blind to the dangers closing in around his family. By the time he understood the truth, it was too late. His only path forward had been revenge, and it had ended in blood. But this time would be different. This time, he would not repeat the same mistakes. The game Conviction was more than entertainment. It would reshape the world. Financial empires would rise within its digital landscape, and many of his enemies would gain power there. In his former life, he had reached level 180 as a thief, climbing through sheer determination after losing everything. Now, armed with knowledge of the future, he possessed an overwhelming advantage. Grabbing his phone with steady hands, he checked the date. The game had launched just 7 days ago. There was still time to prepare. Time to grow stronger. Time to protect his family before disaster struck. His memories of future events were a priceless weapon. He knew the hidden quests, the rare items, the secret opportunities others had yet to discover. The current highest level in the game was only 2. Compared to the peak he once reached, catching up would be effortless. Remembering the small savings he still had in this timeline, the protagonist calculated quickly and realized it was enough to purchase the most basic gaming helmet. That was all he needed. His lips tightened at the thought of Shu, the man whose greed had dragged his family into ruin and a tragic end. Hatred flickered in his eyes, cold and controlled. This time, she would pay for everything. Filled with renewed energy, the young man dressed quickly. He promised himself that this life would not follow the same broken path. As night fell, he stepped out of his apartment, the city lights reflecting in his determined gaze. Even if he had started 7 days later than everyone else, he believed without doubt that his experience from his past life would allow him to surpass them all. Without hesitation, he returned home, set up the equipment, and placed the gaming helmet over his head. The moment he activated it, a soft hum surrounded him. A loading screen appeared before his eyes, signaling that the system was initializing for his first login. Soon after, he entered the game and was greeted by the faction selection interface. The world of Conviction was divided into 3 main alignments: light, dark, and neutral. The light faction first presented the Greenland Empire, a powerful human nation governed by a council. Next was the Saturn Empire, a proud tribal alliance made up of dwarves, beastmen, and noble elves. On the darker side stood the faction of demon descendants and the undead, a realm built on chaos and ambition. Finally, there was the neutral faction, the giants who lived peacefully among the mountains, choosing balance over conflict. In his previous life, he had chosen the Wind Thief class within the Greenland Empire. He knew every skill, every hidden path, every advantage the class possessed. There was no reason to change what already worked. Without hesitation, he selected the same class again. The system confirmed his decision, and he was officially reborn as a thief of the great Greenland Empire. The next scene transported him to a magnificent, floating city suspended among the clouds. The game prompted him to choose a name for his character. He did not pause to think. There was no need to hide behind an alias. Calmly, he entered his own name. The character creation process completed successfully, and the system announced that the human Nyan was ready to begin his journey. In a flash of light, he appeared in the bustling city of Carol. The streets were crowded with new players excitedly beginning their adventures. Opening his status screen, Nyan studied his attributes. A strange sense of familiarity washed over him as the familiar interface unfolded before his eyes. This time, however, he distributed his points carefully. In his past life, he had wasted precious time correcting early mistakes. Now, every decision was calculated for maximum efficiency. Standing in the center of the city, he noticed the large teleportation platform that allowed players to travel to villages and distant cities across the map. Nearby, a player was loudly trying to sell a dagger for 2 copper coins, claiming it was a rare weapon with 1 additional point of attack. Nyan smiled faintly. He clearly remembered being tricked by the same scam in his previous life. The dagger was only worth 1 coin and could even be obtained for free through a beginner quest. A little further ahead, another vendor was offering a stealth skill book to novice thieves for 6 copper coins. Several players were complaining about the high price, arguing that 6 coins were far too expensive for beginners. Nyan walked toward the vendor calmly and asked about the cost. Even though he already knew the answer, the stealth skill was essential for a thief's early survival and growth. As the vendor repeated the price confidently, Nyan's mind drifted to a hidden memory from his past life, a secret connected to this very skill, something most players would not discover until much later. And this time, he intended to use that knowledge from the very beginning. With everything already calculated in his mind, the young thief calmly made his offer. He would reveal a valuable secret in exchange for the stealth skill book, free of charge, and in return he would even teach the vendor how to obtain several more copies of it. The man selling the book frowned immediately, clearly irritated. To him, Nyan looked like just another poor beginner trying to bargain his way into a free skill. He told him to leave and stop wasting his time, but Nyan did not react. His voice remained steady as he revealed that he knew exactly where the skill book had been obtained from the fallen shamans. Then, without hesitation, he recited the precise coordinates of the drop location. The vendor's expression changed instantly. Shock replaced annoyance. How could a level 0 player know such specific information? The detail in Nyan's words made it impossible to dismiss as a guess. The man hesitated, suspicion battling with greed in his mind. When Nyan calmly repeated his promise that the location could yield multiple books if farmed correctly, the vendor finally decided to take the risk. He handed over the stealth skill book for free. A faint, victorious smile appeared on Nyan's face as he accepted it. True to his word, he shared the exact coordinates of the fallen shaman's spawn area. Excited by the potential profit, the vendor thanked him quickly. Just before leaving, Nyan requested 1 more small item as a favor for the information he had provided. The man agreed without hesitation, promising to send it later, then rushed toward the city's teleportation platform. In a flash of intense blue light, he disappeared, eager to test the coordinates. Left alone once more, the white-haired young man turned his attention back to his own objective. With the stealth book now in his possession, he was ready to move toward the secret chest he had hinted at earlier. He activated the teleporter as well and arrived in the city of Track, a lively place filled with quests and adventurers preparing for their journeys. Without wasting a single second, he opened the skill book. A dark aura swirled around him as the system confirmed that the stealth ability had been successfully learned. Taking a slow breath, he activated the skill. His body gradually faded from sight, blending seamlessly into the environment, until he became invisible to the players around him. Completely hidden, Nyan sprinted through the busy streets without drawing a single glance. He moved quickly toward the city gates and passed through them, entering the forest beyond. The air grew heavier as he approached the faint monster zone. The dense woods were filled with lurking danger, but he navigated them with practiced precision, relying on stealth to avoid detection. Soon, he reached the wildcat territoria, hazardous area filled with aggressive creatures. Level 2 and level 4 wildcats prowled the land, their sharp claws and glowing eyes scanning for prey. Hidden in the shadows, Nyan observed them carefully. Then he saw a silver chest resting high on a thick tree branch. Several level 5 wildcats guarded it, moving in slow, watchful circles. In conviction, treasure chest varied in rarity. The lowest tier was common white, followed by silver and gold. Beyond those were dark gold and the nearly mythical legendary chest. The higher the rarity, the greater the rewards inside. The silver chest before him had clearly not been claimed yet. No system announcement had been triggered, and no signs of disturbance were visible. His journey had not been wasted. Although this was an impossible challenge for someone at level 0, Nyan remained calm. Even if he failed, he would not lose experience or items at this early stage. That alone made the risk worth taking. Activating stealth once more, he prepared to execute his plan. His invisibility lasted only 2 minutes, and opening a chest required several seconds of uninterrupted interaction. Every movement had to be perfect. He moved swiftly through the forest, weaving between trees while the wildcats continued their patrols. The countdown in his mind ticked steadily. The chest was only meters away now. Just as he positioned himself beneath the tree, one of the wildcats suddenly paused. Its red eyes narrowed as it sensed something unusual, a faint disturbance in the air. The wildcat's red eyes glowed with suspicion as it fixed its gaze on the faint distortion in the air. In an instant, it lunged. Nyan reacted purely on instinct. With a sharp sidestep and a quick roll across the forest floor, he narrowly avoided the creature's claws. He understood one thing clearly: if he allowed the beast to get too close, his stealth would fail completely. Moving with every ounce of agility his body could offer, He slipped past the feline's strike and dashed toward the tree that held his prize. Without hesitation, he bent his knees and leaped upward. His fingers caught the rough bark, and with a swift pull, he landed on the branch where the silver chest rested. There was no time to breathe, no time to look back. He immediately placed both hands on the chest and began the unlocking process. A progress bar appeared before his eyes, slowly filling. Each second felt heavier than the last. His invisibility could vanish at any moment. His heart pounded, but his expression remained calm. He had faced far worse in his previous life. Then it happened. One of the wildcats below paused and tilted its head upward. Its sharp eyes locked onto the faint silhouette on the branch. A low growl escaped its throat, alerting the others. The tension stretched endlessly. 27 seconds passed like an eternity. Finally, the system notification rang out. The silvered chest had been successfully opened. Without wasting even a heartbeat, Nyan reached inside and grabbed the item waiting within. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. It was the skill book he had come for, the Vital Strike technique. A powerful ability that dealt 150% extra damage with a cooldown of 30 seconds. For a thief in the early stages of the game, the skill was priceless. It would make leveling faster, smoother, and far more efficient. A satisfied smile touched his lips as he immediately used the book. A golden light enveloped his body, and the system confirmed the skill had been learned. But in the very next second, his stealth expired. The wildcats looked up at him with burning rage. He was completely exposed, with no escape route and no chance to outrun level 5 monsters at his current state. Nyan stood his ground for a brief moment as the beast leaped toward him all at once. Claws and fangs surrounded him from every side. As his health dropped to 0 and his vision faded, he gave a small, ironic smile. In his mind, he thanked the wildcats for guarding his treasure so diligently all this time. Death came swiftly. For most players, defeat meant losing items. But Nyan was still level 0. He carried nothing of value. This setback cost him nothing. Moments later, his body reformed in a flash of light back in the city. He stretched slightly and let out a quiet breath. Express transport, he muttered to himself. Very convenient. Now it was time for the second phase of his plan. With a determined look, he ran through the city streets. His next objective was clear. He needed coins. The next step in his strategy required 20 copper coins. And as a beginner, he would have to earn them the traditional way. Without delay, he approached Claus the Hunter and accepted a quest to collect 20 giant rat skulls. Immediately afterward, he spoke with Farmer Ent, who assigned him another simple task to defeat 50 gray rats in the fields. Finally, he visited the pharmacist, who unlocked a hidden quest available only after accepting the previous 2. The secret task required collecting 20 giant rat tails. A confident smile appeared on his face. Everything was aligning perfectly. Soon, he stepped into the nearby field where tall grass swayed gently under the sky. The heavy paws of a monstrous creature pressed into the earth, marking the beginning of his hunt. A level 1 giant rat emerged from the grass, baring its sharp claws and yellow teeth as it prepared to attack. Nyan moved first, activating Vital Strike. He delivered a precise and devastating blow. The damage was overwhelming. The rat barely had time to screech before collapsing onto the ground. With a single attack, it was defeated. Calmly, the young thief collected the skull and the tail from the fallen creature. This was only the beginning. The defeated rat's body dissolved into light, and as Nyan checked his active quest, he noticed something unexpected among the drops. Lying on the grass was a piece of equipment rare for such a weak monster. He picked it up and examined it carefully. A pair of leather leggings. Simple but useful. They increased defense by 4 points and could be worn by any warrior-type class. In the early stage of the game, that bonus was valuable. He immediately calculated its market price. At the auction house, this could easily sell for at least 7 copper coins. A small reward, but every coin mattered right now. Before he could move on, several more giant rats crawled out from the tall grass and surrounded him. Their yellow eyes glinted with aggression, but Nyan remained completely calm. He had already measured their attack patterns and movement speed, activating Vital Strike with precise timing. He stepped forward and cut through them one after another. Each blow landed cleanly, each strike calculated. The monsters fell quickly, unable to withstand the burst damage of his skill. Thanks to his prior knowledge and the powerful ability he had secured from the silver chest, the hunt was smooth and efficient. An hour later, with his inventory filled with skulls and tails, he returned to the village. One by one, he turned in the 3 quests. The system confirmed completion, rewarding him with 34 copper coins and 3 instant recovery potions. The total exceeded what most beginners would earn at this stage. Satisfied, he listed the leather leggings for sale. With coins now in hand, he could finally move to the next phase of his plan. Without delay, he headed toward the city's weapon shop. Inside, polished blades and gleaming armor lined the walls. The shopkeeper greeted him enthusiastically, proudly claiming to sell the finest weapons in the entire region. Nyan gave a polite nod but wasted no time with small talk. He knew exactly what he needed. He requested a crossbow with specific attack power and range, within a budget of 40 copper coins. After browsing through his stock, the merchant presented a rapid-shot crossbow priced at 35 copper coins. The weapon matched Nyan's requirements perfectly. Without hesitation, he purchased it, along with 9 additional bundles of arrows. The total cost came to 4 coins. Though it drained nearly everything he had earned, it was a necessary investment. The shopkeeper wished him luck as he left, unaware that the young adventurer's journey would be far from ordinary. Stepping back into the open air, Nyan set his next destination, the feared bison monster zone. Bison were level 5 creatures, and the game applied strong level suppression when lower level players attacked higher level enemies. Under normal circumstances, a level 0 player would stand no chance. But Nyan was not relying on strength alone. He was relying on knowledge. He arrived at the vast green plains where herds of massive bison roamed freely. The ground trembled under their heavy steps. Using his memory of the terrain, he carefully navigated toward a canyon edge and leaped across to a narrow, cliff ledge and elevated strategic position. From there, he would remain out of reach. He remembered the exact coordinates where the strongest monster in the area usually appeared. Scanning the field below, he soon found the herd leader, a level 8 bison with 300 health points. Its size was imposing, its presence commanding. For beginners, it was an impossible challenge. Nyan steadied his breathing and raised his crossbow. The distance was perfect, right at the edge of the weapon's effective range. Without hesitation, he fired the first arrow. The bolt struck the grazing beast. Because of the massive level difference, the damage was minimal, only 1 point. The leader barely reacted at first, but Nyan remained calm. He had come prepared. In his inventory were thousands of arrows, more than enough to wear the monster down slowly. He continued firing without pause. Arrow after arrow cut through the air, striking the bison steadily. Its health decreased little by little. Eventually, the creature lifted its massive head. Its eyes turned red with rage as it realized it was under attack. Snorting fiercely, it locked onto Nyan's position. With a thunderous roar, the enraged leader charged toward the cliff. The ground shook as it attempted to reach the attacker above. But no matter how fiercely it ran the rock wall, it could not climb. Nyan was exploiting a flaw in the terrain, a small glitch in the game's design that prevented large monsters from scaling that particular edge. Unshaken, he continued to shoot, maintaining his rhythm. The furious beast could only glare upward in helpless rage while its health steadily drained. Nyan kept firing without pause, each arrow dealing only a single point of damage to the raging beast below. The battle turned into a test of patience rather than power. Arrow after arrow rained down on the herd leader, the steady rhythm of his shots echoing across the plains. Minutes stretched into hours. His fingers moved mechanically, his focus unbroken. The bison roared again and again, charging uselessly at the cliff, unable to reach the attacker, exploiting the terrain flaw. 3 hours passed. Finally, one last arrow flew true and struck the chief squarely. Its health bar emptied completely. The massive body trembled, let out a final roar, and collapsed onto the grass. The long and exhausting battle was over. Without hesitation, Nyan jumped down from the cliff as the corpse began dissolving into light. For defeating an enemy far stronger than himself, he received a large amount of experience, instantly leveling up to level 2. Skipping level 1 entirely, he stepped toward the drops with calm anticipation. Among the spoils were 5 copper coins and a bronze dagger. For an early game reward, this was exceptional. In conviction, equipment rarity mattered greatly, and bronze tier weapons were already 20% stronger than common ones. Judging by experience, he estimated the dagger could be worth at least 10 silver coins, but first, it needed proper identification. At that moment, a notification appeared. His previously listed item had been sold, and the player Flying Stone was requesting to speak with him. Nyan accepted the communication. Flying Stone excitedly reported that the secret farming spot worked perfectly and that he had already obtained the skill books. Feeling grateful, he insisted he owed Nyan a favor. Calmly, Nyan told him not to worry and simply to send him a specific skill book if it ever dropped. To strengthen his credibility, he casually claimed he had another account before this one. Flying Stone immediately believed him, assuming he had once been a high-level player. Curious, Flying Stone asked if his old account had already cleared the Fallen Shaman dungeon, since his own group had just suffered heavy losses there. With complete confidence, Nyan replied that he possessed the full strategy guide, but the price was fixed at 2 silver coins, with no bargaining. Hearing such a low price, Flying Stone became thrilled and promised to convince his team captain quickly. Ending the call, Nyan turned his attention back to the bronze dagger. He needed to uncover its true potential. Soon after, he arrived at the busy village of Track, filled with essential shops for players. Entering the appraisal store, he was greeted by a graceful elf attendant, who politely asked which item he wished to identify. With a gentle smile, she informed him that the fee was 10 copper coins. Nyan quickly did the math. If the identification cost was that high, then the weapon's market value had to exceed at least 12 silver coins. Without hesitation, he paid the 10 copper coins and authorized the appraisal. A bright magical aura surrounded the room as the elf revealed the dagger's hidden properties. The system displayed the results. Level 0 horned dagger, 18 attack points, plus an additional bonus of 5 strength. A faint smile appeared on Nyan's face. Those extra stats placed him far ahead of other beginners. With this weapon, his early game advantage became overwhelming. Reviewing his equipment, he concluded that only one thing was missing: a sustainable recovery skill for prolonged combat. Thieves typically relied on potions or bandages. Since potions were expensive and his funds were limited, he chose the healing bandage technique instead. Before moving forward with his next objective, he stopped by the city pharmacy and purchased 2 basic water-breathing potions for future use. With preparations complete, he set off toward Rondo Lake, a remote area near a small fishing village. Crossing an open field, he noticed several players battling monsters and remained cautious. The region was not safe. To reach his destination, he needed to pass through the fisherman's village, currently overrun by hostile creatures. Just as he approached, a regional announcement echoed across the area. The Victoria's Return Guild declared they would be clearing the zone and ordered all other players to leave immediately. Nyan's expression darkened. He remembered that guild well. In his previous life, they had been powerful, arrogant, and ruthless. They controlled territories and hunted players who crossed them. He himself had been chased by them for months. The memory of that humiliation burned quietly inside him. This time would be different. Without fear, the white-haired thief activated his stealth skill. Hidden from sight, he calmly decided to use the chaos to his advantage. Using the chaos caused by the guild's announcement, Nyan moved swiftly through the fisherman's village. Hidden under the fading effect of his stealth, he slipped between monsters and armored players, using their distraction as cover. For a moment, everything went perfectly, but halfway across the village, his invisibility expired. Before he could reactivate it, a blazing fireball tore through the air and struck him directly in the chest. The impact dealt 23 damage, and the system immediately announced that the player Purple Fire had attacked first. Standing ahead was a level 3 elemental mage, robes flickering with residual flames. With an arrogant tone, the mage ordered him to leave, declaring that solo players were not allowed in this area controlled by their guild. Nyan remained calm. In his past life, he might have retreated. In this life, running was no longer his instinct. He carefully observed the mage's casting motion and quickly calculated the spell's 2-second cast time. That window was enough. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and hurled his dagger. Blade struck the mage cleanly, dealing equal damage in return. Shock flashed across Purple Fire's face. Furious, he accused the thief of provoking the guild and immediately cast a violent ring of fire to trap and burn him. Flames surged outward in a blazing circle. Nyan endured the full force of the attack, taking 39 damage. His health dropped dangerously low, but his expression never changed. In one swift motion, he drank a recovery potion. His health surged upward by 89 points. The mage's confidence faltered instantly. Before Purple Fire could react, Nyan closed the distance and delivered a heavy strike. The critical blow dealt 36 damage, knocking the mage backward and shifting the momentum of the fight. Angered and humiliated, Purple Fire shouted for the intruder to leave at once. Internally, he calculated that the thief must be near defeat after absorbing multiple spells. Smiling confidently, he began casting his strongest fireball, declaring it the consequence of challenging their powerful guild. But Nyan's eyes remained steady. He activated Vital Strike and charged forward at full speed. Before the mage could complete his spell, the dagger flashed once more. The final strike landed. Purple Fire's health fell to 0. Stunned, the mage couldn't comprehend how a mere level 2 thief had survived his barrage. As his body faded, he realized the difference had been the potion and wondered how a solo player had managed to afford such an item so early in the game. With a faint, victorious smile, Nyan told him to reflect on it when he respawned in the city. The mage disappeared, leaving behind a bronze staff. Nyan quickly collected it, knowing it would sell for a respectable amount. But there was no time to celebrate. Other guild members had witnessed the fall of their companion and rushed forward in anger. Without hesitation, Nyan turned and sprinted away. Heavy footsteps thundered behind him. A muscular warrior leapt ahead to block his path, flaming sword blazing with energy. The warrior unleashed a powerful slash, aiming to finish the fugitive in one decisive blow. Nyan twisted his body with remarkable agility, narrowly dodging the strike. Without slowing down, he continued toward the nearby lake. The warrior stared in disbelief at the thief's speed and reflexes. As Nyan reached the shoreline, he quickly drank one of the water-breathing potions. Behind him, two guild warriors activated their charge and flaming slash skills, trying to corner him before he escaped. Their attacks came fast and coordinated, but Nyan's focus never wavered. Just before they closed the distance, he threw his dagger toward them, forcing them to hesitate for a fraction of a second. Using that brief distraction, he leapt from the cliff and dove into the deep waters below. With a powerful splash, his body vanished beneath the lake's surface. On the shore, the pursuing players stopped in frustration. None of them had water-breathing potions. They could not follow. Moments later, another guild member arrived and demanded to know what had happened. They explained that the fugitive had escaped underwater. The guild leader then ordered them to ask the defeated mage for the thief's name, so they could hunt him down later. Beneath the calm surface of the lake, Nyan swam silently. His name now displayed to enemies was Nirvana Flame. He allowed himself a faint smile and promised that next time, he would not be so gentle. Satisfied that he had shaken off the guilt, he remembered something important. Hidden at the bottom of this very lake were several treasure chests. With his memories guiding him once again, the young man began swimming deeper into the dark waters, ready to claim yet another advantage in this new life. He dove straight toward the marked coordinates, cutting through the dark water with steady strokes, until he reached the exact spot he had memorized. Hidden beneath layers of silt and seaweed rested a small iron-bound chest. For a brief second, he allowed himself a satisfied smile. Inside, just as he had hoped, lay a shimmering pearl, a rare item, capable of granting 30 minutes of water breathing every 12 hours. It was a priceless advantage in a place like this. But before he could celebrate, the water around him trembled. A radiant golden trident materialized out of nowhere, hovering menacingly in front of him. In that instant, he understood he had been detected. He had not even reached the true lair of the creature that ruled these waters, and already the guards were on him. Fighting underwater against aquatic monsters was suicide for someone of his class. Without hesitation, he chose survival over pride and turned to flee, kicking hard toward the surface. Above the lake, the water churned violently. The monsters, furious at the intrusion into their sacred domain, roared and stirred the depths in agitation. Then suddenly, a massive explosion echoed from the direction of the fisherman's village. Flames and smoke rose into the sky. The victorious Return Guild had begun its assault. As if pulled by instinct, the aquatic creatures abandoned their hunt and rushed to defend their territory. Watching the chaos from a safe distance, the young man allowed himself a quiet laugh. The timing could not have been more perfect. While the guild occupied the monsters, his own path was finally clear. Moments later, the system notification appeared before him, confirming that he had discovered the island of the lakes. Heart, his true objective was about to begin. Climbing out of the water and stepping onto the hidden shore, he drew in a deep breath of relief. He had reached the secret island alive, but that relief lasted only seconds. On the beach ahead, he saw a pink-haired girl sprinting desperately through the sand. 3 monsters closed behind her. His eyes widened in disbelief. Yao Yao. In his past life, she had been his holy mage companion, someone who had fought beside him through countless dangers. He had never expected to encounter her so early in this life. Memories flickered through his mind. Battles fought together. Unspoken trust, moments that felt larger than coincidence. Could fate truly be this cruel, or this kind? The girl spotted him emerging from the water, and panic flashed across her face. Another stranger appearing now would only complicate her situation. But before doubt could take root, the young man acted. He launched himself toward the nearest monster without hesitation. Drawing on his strongest skill, the former thief executed a precise vital strike, landing a clean hit on the creature's weak point and bringing it down instantly. At the same time, the mage steadied herself and unleashed holy judgment. Radiant light descended upon another monster, obliterating it in a single brilliant burst. Without needing words, they moved together, their attacks flowing seamlessly, as though they had rehearsed this battle countless times before. In moments, the last creature fell, breathing heavily. The young woman turned to him and thanked him sincerely for his sudden intervention. He simply smiled and introduced himself, calmly as the player Nirvana Flame. The name clearly struck something inside her. She repeated it softly under her breath, searching her memory. Could he be the same Nan she once knew in the real world? Composing herself, she introduced herself as Cha Cha and, as a gesture of gratitude, asked to add him as a friend. He accepted, and the system confirmed their new connection. When he asked what brought her to this island, she explained she was collecting water pouches for a quest. He nodded and mentioned that he needed fine silk from the same monsters. Without hesitation, she opened the trade window and handed over the silk she had already gathered, 12 pieces in total. He quickly calculated their value, 36 copper coins in the current market. She shrugged lightly and said money could never replace lost experience. And since the silk was useless to her, he should take it. Her generosity was effortless, just as he remembered. Before their conversation could continue, the lake behind them erupted. The leader of the water spiders rose from the depths, its massive body casting a shadow over the shoreline. Both of them instantly sensed the danger. The system notification flashed again. They had formed a party to confront the island's chief together. Without wasting a second, the young man charged forward and unleashed another vital strike, dealing 52 points of damage to the giant creature. The mage followed immediately, channeling holy judgment once more. A beam of pure light struck the spider squarely, dealing 70 points of damage and staggering the beast. Jump, he shouted as the creature retaliated. They leaped aside just in time, narrowly avoiding a devastating counterattack. Switching tactics, he drew his crossbow and announced that he would keep the chief's attention while she prepared another spell. His arrows struck the monster's hardened carapace repeatedly, provoking its fury and holding its focus. The mage seized the opening. Gathering her strength, she cast Holy Judgment again. The radiant blast hit cleanly, inflicting another 70 points of damage and pushing the creature to its limit. With one final cry, the massive water spider collapsed, its body sinking lifelessly into the lake. The system confirmed the defeat of the island's leader. Silence settled over the shore. The young woman stood quietly, a strange expression on her face. Their coordination had been flawless for two players who had just met. It had felt natural, instinctive, as if years of shared battles guided their movements. Noticing her silence, the protagonist turned to her and asked gently if something was wrong. She quickly masked her thoughts with a smile, complimenting his skill and asking why someone so capable fought alone. He looked out over the water for a moment before answering simply that he was used to it.